I've got such a loud voice. It's not about the voice, is it? It's about others hearing it. Okay. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Joint Standards Committee. As this is the first meeting of our independent persons, I want to welcome them. And for those who don't know, we have Mr. Lee, who is joining us here in person. So welcome to you, Mr. Lee. We look forward to working with you, and you have taken a full part in what we do as a committee. And also we have Mr. Gadd, who those observant people watching online will notice he's not around the table, but I'm assured that we have Mr. Gadd remotely. So Mr. Gadd, are you there?
I am, thank you, Chair.
We'll have you amplified in a moment.
I am, thank you.
Lovely. Welcome, Mr. Gadd, to your first meeting of the Joint Standards Committee. I know that you probably, both of you, have been involved in assessment subcommittees, but in terms of the main Joint Standards Committee, I think this is your first meeting, so welcome to that. Before we go into our agenda, I just have some apologies. So I have apologies from Councillor Galvin, and I have apologies from Parish Councillor Rawlings, who is the current Vice Chair, but he's given his apologies as well. And obviously Mr. Gadd, we know, is with us remotely and not here physically. So moving on to item 1 of the agenda, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest that are not disclosed on the register of interest already? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 8, monetary reports from complaints received. Since 2 of the cases involve me, I shall withdraw from the meeting and take no part in that discussion of those.
Thank you.
Because there are 2 complaints from Michael. Sorry.
Does the same apply to all of us? Because 2 of the names that appear on there are members of this committee.
So my understanding is that, and again, I'll take advice from my colleagues to my left and to my right. If the case is closed, then there's no reason, there's no need to. So if we're looking at the monitoring officer's report. Okay, I'm really sorry. We need to be careful not mentioning names. So and said councillor is not in the room to give his apologies. If and when he appears, then but well spotted there. Absolutely. So, okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 2, which is the appointment of the Vice Chair of the Joint Standards Committee. This is usually an item on the first agenda of the municipal year, and unfortunately we weren't able at our last meeting to resolve this. Our current Vice Chair is Councillor Rawlings, and he has continued to be the Vice Chair till now, when we have an opportunity to appoint a Vice Chair. It is convention at this committee that the Chair is a serving City of York councillor, and that the Vice Chair is a parish councillor, although it is convention. I don't understand that there's any kind of, it's not written in stone, but I think it's a convention that we would do well to continue. And so I have been given an indication by Councillor Rawlings that although he is absent from this meeting, that he is willing to allow his name to be nominated and seconded for Vice Chair. So I would ask if there's anybody that would like to nominate and second him. Councillor Kilbane.
Happy to nominate Councillor Rawlings.
Thank you. And Councillor
Happy
Woodby.
to second Councillor Rawlings.
Okay, so I also need to ask, I know the answer because I've kind of preempted this, but do any of our other parish councillors wish to be considered for a nomination? No. Okay. So we have a nomination and a seconder for Councillor Rawlings to be the Vice Chair of this committee for the remainder of this municipal year. Can I have a show of hands? Those are okay. That's carried. In order to clarify this, been said, then can we suspend the meeting? Or can it be? Okay, so at this stage, for those that are watching online, I am just going to suspend the live broadcast because I just need to seek some clarification from the officers, and then we'll come back in a few moments. So if you just see the screen go blank for a moment, and Richard, if you can let me know once we are. Those that are watching, thank you for allowing us just to pause there for a moment, just to check one or two situations with my officers. Item number 3 is the exclusion of the press and the public. To consider the exclusion of the public and press from the meeting during the consideration of annexes A and B, the managing officer's complaints report. This is in accordance with the legislation, and the only thing I would want to do before then is probably just move the sorry, bear with me one moment. No, I don't. Sorry, don't forgive me. Yes, so can I just ask if we're happy for the press and public to be excluded for agenda item number 8? Yeah, okay, thank you very much. And so item number 4, which you will have the minutes of the previous meetings. So you have the minutes of the 30th of June Joint Standards Committee. I don't see anything that needs to be changed in them. Anybody got any comments? No. So we're happy to accept those as fair. I'll have those signed. Thank you very much. Get ink everywhere again now. Ooh, there we go. That's escaped. And then agenda item page number 7, the committee, Joint Standards Assessment Subcommittee that was held on the 19th of May, 2022. Again, I think there's only one member that's still around this table. Are they an accurate?
It sounds like.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So I'm saying that in her absence then
Yeah,
effectively.
we'll just find a vice chair and then.
And then the next one is the Joint Standards Committee that was Assessment Subcommittee that was held on the 9th of August. That all seems to me to be okay. I think I'm the only one here on that one, so can I? And then the assessment subcommittee that was held on the 19th of October. Okay, and Councillor Chambers, you were at that meeting, you happy with those? Okay, fine, sign those off as well. Back next to Councillor Fisher would sign those. Yeah, you can sign those. Yeah, because it's here. Thank you. So item number 6 on the agenda is urgent business. I've received no items of urgent business, neither of my colleagues. So that takes us into item number 7 on the agenda, which is public participation. We have nobody registered to speak in public participation, and so we will move on. Just item number 9. Can we do that now? And then, yeah. So with members' permission, I'd like to just to move agenda item number 9, which is the review of the work plan. I'd like to move that forward, which will then allow us to then take item number 8 in private, and then there will be no need for us then to come back into a public meeting following that. So agenda item number 9, which is the review of the work plan. There are a couple of things that I would like to have a look at on there for us. And so obviously our next meeting is the 19th of January. And you will, those of you that were around will remember that had we been able to meet as planned in our previous meeting, we were going to have a report from the YLCA and from Sheena Spence. She's going to come and talk to us about how we can work more closely with parish and town councils. She's not able to be at this meeting, so it's been moved on to the next. It says written report, but I have got it on good authority that she's going to be here in person, so that would be really, really good. There are, apart from the obvious things that are going to be on there with regards to the work plan and the monetary officer's report, there are a couple of things that I would like to put on there, and then I'm happy to open it up to members to make suggestions. I would like us to look at, on the advice of the monitoring officer, I'd like us to just review our policies and procedures. The new policies and procedures were put in place last year, and I think it's always good for a committee to look at the policies and procedures, and if necessary, just to maybe tweak those. Again, any changes need to go to, my understanding, needs to go to full council anyway, but it would be good for us to review that. And also we have a new independent persons, and they may also want to have a look at the policies and procedures and maybe add some helpful discussion around that. So I'd like that to be on the agenda as well at the next meeting. Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay. Mr. Lee, I think you wanted us to look at, you've alluded a moment ago to the, to on the work plan.
I've, Chair, referenced the nature of the report, where of this agenda there is 120 odd pages, the vast bulk of which are an A and B appendix. A is very similar to B in any case, and as was just demonstrated, individuals can find it difficult to understand what the current and up-to-date position is, because they've been given a lot of information on closed positions. So I think the document, my view, and we could discuss it then, instead of being 126 pages, could be more like 25 pages. Because if you keep duplicating things in a couple of places, which this does, and if it's not absolutely clear to people of the significance and order of things, which it wasn't on a particular issue for someone, a lot of time can be lost in the paperwork. So I understand that this is the result of previous decisions by the committee over what they wanted to see. So it might be time for the committee to review, do you really want to see all of this? And do you really want to see all of this in this form, particularly with closed items where you've already made the decisions?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm happy to kind of have a discussion around that and take members' views. I mean, I kind of think that, whilst I don't want to be here beyond the necessary time, I think we're afforded in this meeting an opportunity to maybe discuss that now, if members are comfortable to have that discussion around the table now. Okay to do that? I'm looking at my colleagues. So if I explain a little bit of background as to why it is the way it is, and I agree with you that it can appear to be a slightly unwieldy. So again, just for transparency and for those that are watching, there are two appendices, A and B. One of them is redacted, so there are no names, and then the salmon coloured one does have all the details of and names, which is why we go into private session to discuss it. I think previous members of this committee felt it was really important that the detail of closed cases was available for us to have a look at, so that we could understand why decisions were made. And whilst I kind of have sympathy with that thought process, my question would be, how far back do we need to have that? So it may well be that, you know, we go back a particular number of years rather than going back kind of, you know, to whatever number it is, or until someone decides that it's probably too old to come back to this committee. So at the moment, Francis, at the moment, how far back does it go in terms of kind of numbers and dates and times on the closed cases? Because I can see one here that's 2021, 2017 case there. So if I go back to this, to there, and yeah.
Chair, I ask for your attention. I hope you've seen it back. Some comments I made to Francis. I mean, there's a lot of unwieldy, unused stuff. So the basic question really for any committee is, are you going to do anything with the bit of paper that's being put in front of you? So if something is closed and you've seen a previous agenda paper that closed it, and providing you accept the officers will actually accurately record the fact that something's being closed, because that's their job, then if they simply give you a schedule which says between meetings we close being 6, do you really need to keep seeing them coming over in every subsequent meeting you've got?
Yeah, yeah. Anybody else got any comments? I mean, I've got thoughts. Sorry, Francis.
Chair, if it would give reassurance to the committee, if this schedule of closed cases were not to appear in the committee papers, it would not disappear. The monitoring officer would retain all of this. So the record is not lost if it's not presented, you know, again and again to committee. That was one point I'd like to make. And the second was really about the terms of reference for the committee of the whole, as a whole, and how the information presented would help the committee to fulfil those terms of reference. And clearly they include things like directing training and the member development programme. So is there key performance indication that would be better summarised in a pie chart, for example, which tells you what type of complaints comes in more often, or do you want to be sure, for example, that the monitoring officer is not dispensing with too many at the filtering stage, or is dispensing with enough complaints at the filtering stage? So that's, you look at the operation of the procedure as it is now, there are stages at which a complaint can end, and it would seem appropriate that the committee keeps oversight of whether those points seem to be being held at places proportionate to the gravity of the types of complaints being received. So perhaps it's something for the committee to discuss, you know. I'm not saying key performance indicators as such, but something which assists you to deliver that guidance and training to target, you know, upholding of high standards of conduct.
Okay, thank you, Francis. Councillor Degon.
Yes, I just sort of want to support that notion that we don't. It's a case of thing with the trees. It would be far more useful, literally trees. We see it'd be more useful to have like an annual analysis of the different types of closed cases, and can be listed those that have been closed in the last, since the last meeting or whatever, or in the last 6 months or whichever until you'll note appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor. What you will notice on the work plan is that we look at the annual report that we have to put as a committee to full council, and that contains a lot of that information that you've asked for and that Francis alluded to. I've got my thoughts on Mr. Lee's comments, but I just want to make sure everyone's had an opportunity to give their thoughts on the length of the closed cases. Councillor Cobain.
I'm sure we can deliver it in a more concise way and still have the information.
Thank you. So my thought, for what it's worth, I think once a case has come to this committee on the pink papers and it has closed and we've seen the reason for its closure, there seems no need for it to still be on a pink paper at the following meeting. And even if you have absent colleagues who aren't at the meeting where it was presented as a closed case, they will have the agenda paper to read it anyway. So I would suggest, if as members you're comfortable with this, I'd suggest that actually once a case comes to us on the pink papers and is closed, and we've seen the reasons for its closure, that it doesn't then appear on a list of closed cases thereafter. We will be getting that information of the number of cases and the different types of decisions that were made at the filtering stage. We'll get that information, and if you wish it to be more than annually, if you wish it to be an agenda item for us just to simply look at for information, I'm happy for that to be the case. But you will also recall, and I'm speaking to those that have been on the committee for some time, that one of the changes that we made to the committee, it was that whilst it remains the responsibility of the monitoring officer to filter and to make a decision as to whether the case goes forward in the process, the monitoring officer does that in discussion with the independent person, but also in discussion with the chair or the vice chair. And I can say, both for myself and Councillor Rawlings have been approached on, I think, on every occasion by either the monitoring officer or the deputy monitoring officer to seek our views prior to their decision. So our views don't overturn their decision. Their decision is what their decision is, but that's given us a little bit more transparency and a little bit more responsibility as a committee, that where a case is dismissed and it comes back to this committee as a dismissed case and closed case, that at least it's gone through the scrutiny of this committee in some form. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. And as I say, we will be looking at some slight tweaks at the next meeting. So if you're comfortable with that as members, then I'm happy for us just to move forward with that. Is that okay to my colleagues, my officer colleagues? So yeah, thank you, Mr. Lee.
Could I make one other thing, which is, I think the document could be simplified in any case. If you take an example of column 9, as you have it there, in Appendix A, it has no entries. Appendix B has 4 entries spread over 48 sides. So I think it might be possible to do something to simplify, as well as reducing the volume, to simplify the column structure, because the more columns you create, the longer the document is. Particularly, you get a lot of white paper in there.
Sorry, Mr. Lee, I don't quite understand what you're
It's not just about.
You might.
It's not just about the strategic issue is a discussion we've already had, which is what should you have reported, what should you see? But in terms of your commitment and time as councillors, it's actually more valuable than other people might give you credit for, but your time is important. And the easier it is for you to read a document, the more effective your time is. So if someone gives you a document with a lot of columns in it, it gets longer when there's not much written in those columns. So as well as the strategic issue about what you consider, I think there could be some tweaking of the format.
Okay, I thank you, and I understand what you're saying. I'm not quite sure how removing a column will make the document shorter. But it wouldn't make the document any shorter, would it?
Yes, it would, because if you've got a long, thin column which is full of words, double its width, it's half the length.
Okay, and I defer to members. I think column 9 was put in there to ensure that we're adhering to the request of this committee that the chair or vice chair were consulted. I think it's quite a narrow column. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy for it to stay in, although I take your point, Mr. Lee, but I'm again more than happy to defer to the will of the members, but I'm quite comfortable for it to stay in. I think the first week we've agreed is probably where we're at the moment. But I do understand your point. Sorry, Francis.
Chair, if the committee would like to see a proposed template, I could include that in the report I bring back next time. Just looking at the columns now, it's obvious why we have a case reference for the public papers, because it replaces the name of the councillor. But does it, for example, need to be on the pink papers? Because so there are 2 that might be conjoined there. Status and updates, are they saying the same thing? Are they saying something substantially different? So I'm happy to put a proposal in the report that I bring back to the next committee, and members can either approve it or reject it, but we can look at options.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Members happy with that? Yeah, okay, that's fine. So anything else on the work plan? I'm just aware that we were on it. Agenda item number 9. Sorry, Councillor Cobain.
Not at all, thanks, Chair. It would be good to hear from A&G on progress on the member training programme that they are going to develop in December.
Yes.
That we fed into many moons ago.
Yes.
So it'd be good to get an update from them at some point.
Okay, and I think that's probably going to give us a full enough meeting in January. So I'm going to cut it off there. Thank you, members. So we're going to go into agenda item number 8, and obviously at this point I'm going to ask that the broadcast be closed. And for those that are watching and maybe have just joined, we will not be coming back into a public session. We've done all the public items that are on the agenda, so we are now going to go into a private session, and it will remain a private session till the end of the meeting.